I spoke to the emperor of the moral effect which the resistance of the Spanish nation was having on the people in general, and suggested to him that he was mistaken in attaching no importance to the example they were setting. I reminded him of the remark of the Tsar Alexander, which had struck me and which I had repeated to him on my return. You have beaten the Spanish armies, but you have not subdued the nation. The nation will raise other armies. The Spaniards, without any government, are setting a noble example to other nations. They are teaching the sovereigns what can be accomplished by perseverance in a just cause. The emperor treated as a joke what he called the maxims of the prophet of the North. He added, however, although he made many mistakes, or at least allowed his generals to make them, the Tsar Alexander is the only one among the rulers who has shown good judgment and made a sound estimate of his position of the course of events. The prince has more intelligence than men think, and he has good judgment. His misfortune lies in being so poorly seconded. Returning to affairs in Spain, the emperor said, "It is easy to pronounce judgment upon what is past, and easy to exalt as heroism what pertains to causes that are in truth hardly honorable. The heroism with which, in their hatred of France, they now credit the Spaniards, arises simply out of the barbarous condition of that half-savage population, and out of the superstitions to which the mistakes of our generals have given new vigor. It is out of laziness, not out of heroism, that the Spanish peasant prefers the dangers of a smuggler's life or a highwayman to the labors of cultivating the soil. The Spanish peasants have seized the opportunity of taking up this nomadic smuggler's existence, which is so well suited to their taste, and to the relief of their extreme poverty. There is nothing patriotic about that." The emperor cited in support of his dictum that armies of 50,000 Spaniards gave ground and took flight before much smaller forces, because the Spaniards would only go into danger where there was hope of booty. The Romans and the Spartans, he added, had other aims. They faced death for other motives. The land of their fathers meant something to them, but the wretched Spaniard is only moved by the attractions of booty. Anything is better than the miserable existence he leads in his own village. It is nothing but bias that has pompously ascribed nobility to a course of action whose objects have never been honorable, although the result may be useful at the moment to the cause they think the Spaniards are defending. The Spaniard of today is still the same as in the time of the Romans, like a savage. He hates the foreigner, or rather whatever is unfamiliar to him. He hates anything that tends to bring him out of his state of barbarism. The Spanish peasantry have even less share in the civilization of Europe than the Russians. It is true, he went on, that the proximity of the Spanish Bourbon to my dynasty, which sits on the throne of Louis XVI, seemed to me a state of affairs which was likely to prove inconvenient. I often discussed it with Talleyrand, and I did so many other questions which are involved in the broader interests of the world. For a long time, however, I did not think that it bore directly upon the affairs of the moment, for it seemed to me very clear that the obstinate stupidity of the king, controlled as he was by Godoy, the Prince of Peace, would keep the country from any development that might cause me anxiety. Accordingly, I had no other intention than to make Spain useful to me against the English. The weakness of the king, combined with the interests of his favorite, who would wish, I thought, not to be in bad odor with the French, suited my policy too well for me to have any thought of other arrangements. And then suddenly, roused no doubt by the mutterings of Castilian pride, which had been wounded by some proposal or by some clumsiness on the part of our diplomatic representatives, the king felt the moment favorable to regain the respect of the Spaniards by calling them out against me, to whom he was thought to have sold himself. The fool! At the moment when his favor was disappearing in a general outcry against him, he thought to save himself by rousing the nation in the very direction of its discontent. And in trying to save himself, he lost Spain. And Murat, in his turn, lost Spain for me by trying to save the favorite. For in the Madrid rebellion, the nation was angry only against Godoy. They only looked upon us as enemies because Murat tried to save him, and by this tactlessness gave the nation ground for believing what ill will whispered against us, that we were partners with Godoy, or he with us. The emperor discussed Godoy's insolent proclamation to the Spaniards, the proclamation of October 3rd, 1806. The behavior of the favorite, he said to me, seemed a little suspicious even before Jena. It would have seemed thoroughly suspicious if my ambassador had been a capable man and had kept me informed of what was happening in Spain, but I was not well served. Amazed to find, then, an opposition to which I was not accustomed in that cabinet, I was on my guard. This change of policy even made me wish to arrange the differences which had arisen with Prussia, although otherwise I should have made haste to pick up the gauntlet, which the Prussian court threw down at such an ill-judged moment. I could see there was some discontent among the Spaniards, but I thought only their vanity was wounded, which I could have soothed at a later date. And I confess I was a long way from thinking that I should receive a declaration of war from the favorite. I thought him better advised. The emperor added that he had been amazed at receiving after Jena this strange proclamation, by which he was not misled for a moment. He went on, not being able to disguise from myself the intentions of this new enemy, I disguised my attitude from him. Although the success I had just gained stood me in as good stead as I could have wished, and although being more subtle in politics than Godoy, I had myself provided him, for the moment, with the means to explain everything to me so as to think me satisfied. Yet I promised myself to take a startling revenge upon him at the first opportunity, or, at the least, to put the Spanish court in such a position that it could not prove an embarrassment to me on any future occasion. This behavior opened my eyes, the emperor remarked to me more than once, and he added, the Prince of Peace might have caused me some gray hairs on the day before Jena, but on the day after, I was master of the circumstances. For a moment, I thought the Spaniards more decided than they seemed, and my ambassador their dupe, but that anxiety didn't last. Godoy was more fatal to Spain on one occasion when he showed some energy than by all his weakness, and the dishonor with which publicly, and for years, he had stamped his master. He did not stop to realize that when a man in his position draws his sword against a sovereign ruler, he must conquer or die. For though kings may forgive each other their injuries, they have not and should not have the same indulgences towards subjects. He should have seen that there could be no possible pardon for a man who, like himself, had no roots in the land. Neither reason nor policy would allow it. He made a sacrifice of Spain in order to continue to be the favorite, and the Spanish sacrificed themselves in order to be revenged on him and on those whom they wrongly believed were his supporters. In a state of revolution, rumor and popular hatred can strike roots. Once the first gun is fired, there are no more explanations. Passions rise, and the men who cannot agree kill each other. Here the emperor reviewed the story of the intrigues, French, Spanish, and Portuguese, which led to the removal of the Bourbons from the peninsula and to the placing of Joseph Bonaparte on the Spanish throne. The emperor's argument was that he never wished to deal with the quarreling Bourbons, Charles IV and Marie Louise and their son Ferdinand at Bayonne in 1808, nor thereafter to compel the abdication of their rights. There were three courses I might have followed in this affair. I chose the one which was indicated to me by my concern for the well-being of Spain and our own interests. Of the others, the second would have made me accessory to a crime, and the last accessory to the humiliation of a nation which was trying to throw off the disgrace of the previous reign. I could not hesitate over the choice, and it was these considerations that prevented me from sending those princes back to Spain, as my own interests advised. Ferdinand would soon have exhausted the enthusiasm of the nation, and his father's return would have humiliated him so badly that he would certainly have turned to me and called me to his aid within 6 months. But C and M thought it would be best to take advantage of the moment when everything was ripe, and the change all the easier brought about because the Bourbons had succeeded in discrediting themselves at Bayonne, even in the eyes of those Spaniards who were most devoted to their cause. Murat told me fairy tales, which also led me into error. I thought to cut short the misfortunes of the country. I was mistaken. If I had followed my own instinct, I should have sent those princes home Today, Spain would have been at my feet.